So here we are, SilverCyber and Huntress in Glasgow on the hottest day of the year, talking all things cyber. Jack I know really well, we'll do some intros in a moment, but we're joined by Sasha and Chris from Huntress. We've been working with you guys for more than 18 months. We're going to have a great chat this afternoon, but it'd be great to hear a bit about Huntress, if you can tell the watchers, because we're on a podcast, which is fantastic. We love doing these. A bit about Huntress, a bit about you, and then we can quickly get into the meat of it. And I know, Jack, you've got some great questions to ask, and we should have a good chat.
Yeah, of course. I'll start with who I am. So I'm Sasha. I'm one of the senior sales engineers at Huntress. I pretty much do anything and everything technical. So one of the highlights of my role is going out and do cyber education. Things like this, and getting out there and getting involved with our partners like yourselves. This is definitely one of the highlights of my job. And if I'm not out there teaching and demoing, then I'm dealing with cyber incidents that partners bring up to me as well. So yeah, quite involved with all of those sort of actions. And we've got Chris.
Yeah, my name's Chris With, Channel Account Manager here at Huntress. Absolutely delighted to be here. I'd like to say thank you to SilverCyber for inviting us up to sunny Glasgow. I'm sure the weather's like this all the time. You just don't want us to come and visit you guys.
That's not the case, Jack.
It's the biggest lie in Glasgow. It's to keep everyone away.
I've been at Huntress 2.5 years now. Thoroughly enjoy working with partners like yourselves. Delighted to be here. Looking forward to the session.
So, Jack, I referenced at the beginning that we've been working with these guys as a managed service provider for just under 2 years. And as a managed service provider, we support now nearly 800 customers, not just in Scotland, but across the UK. To this week, a couple of days ago, we launched SilverCyber. What's that, Jack?
No, of course. So we're really excited to give everybody a bit of information on SilverCyber and why we've launched the business. Over the past 18 months, we've realised how complicated the Scottish SME market is with cybersecurity. Nothing was really making sense to the businesses that we're speaking with, so we wanted to take that specialised approach and simplify it. Cybersecurity is an absolute maze to SMEs just now, so complicated. So we've put a specialist division together to be able to go into SMEs in Scotland and provide that kind of dedicated specialist approach to making sure they're covered from all angles from their security posture. And we're delighted to be partnered with Huntress and empowering the security operations centre behind that and backing that.
Great. And now one of the words that we haven't used yet is AI, but I know in chatting to Sasha and Chris beforehand, we're going to talk about how AI and some of the acceleration of AI adoption is driving some of the risks in cyber.
Absolutely.
But what I wanted to start with, if we can, is I wanted to almost ask the question that quite often is asked at the end of these types of podcasts, is if there's one thing to take away from this podcast, and we've just started it, what's up there in lights for you for Scottish businesses?
I think, at least for me, and it is something which I think, this could be also utilised globally, is education. Take the moment to listen to podcasts like this, do your research, for example, and don't wait for something to happen. Be a little bit more proactive and have those conversations with your trusted sources, such as, SilverCloud and SilverCyber, for example. So for one, I always talk about knowledge is power. The one thing that I feel like anyone could be able to take away is just learning day by day a little bit more of what's happening out there. And that's going to help you reduce your business risk quite dramatically just by making those next steps. And that's one of the key takeaways with any of the public speaking sessions I do, is that you're here for a reason, you're learning, take that away and continue that journey.
But you talked about business risks there. So as you're a global business, you've got, I think just from what I've seen, nearly 1,000 employees, and you are helping businesses like us protect other businesses from all risks around cyber. What are those risks? How are they changing? What's the thing that keeps you awake up at night, that we should be awake at night to protect our customers?
I think when I'm speaking to customers as well, is the common thing is that, Sasha, we're 9 to 5. We operate between the hours of 9 to 5. After that, we have no eyes on our environment. We have no idea. There's sometimes that we fear of waking up the next day, the next morning, and then realizing we can't access any of our computers, any of our files. So the thing that keeps me up at night is knowing that cyber criminals, while I'm sleeping, could be attacking, and I won't know the repercussions until I wake up and realize I can't log in to my Windows machine. I can't log into my Active Directory anymore, and everything is completely down. The business risk, the operational risk, reputational damage that follows with that as well. So those are the sorts of things that keep me up at night. And the fact that, as we mentioned, artificial intelligence is not just now, but have for a while been accessible by bad actors, which are making them more faster and aggressive than ever in 2026.
So what's a bad actor?
So a bad actor is basically a hacker, somebody who's trying to be able to get access to your environment, as an example, somebody that's trying to bypass your security tool. So that's just effectively a hacker, somebody that's trying to be able to effectively do some malice within your environment.
And I know from being in the sector, in the industry, that the accessibility for those bad actors it's never been easier for them to get access to technology and target businesses and individuals.
I completely agree. Something that I'm talking about quite often is, 5-10 years ago, you had to be proficient in many coding languages and be quite knowledgeable with networking skills. Nowadays, it's knowing what tool to use, as in an AI tool, which is quite concerning.
And I've used the analogy before of it's like giving a kid or a baby a flamethrower. They just pull the trigger and go, and now there's mayhem, and that can be, it's more than phishing attacks now as well. And I know from Jack and I often talk to our customers and we protect them from identity, their identities. It's more than antivirus as well, isn't it?
It is. So, things as what we was talking about in my previous session on my YouTube was that an antivirus is 10 years ago, very effective. Nowadays, with AI being able to generate codes like rats on things like Claude, etc., takes minutes. So an antivirus is not going to be able to pick up these sorts of common threats, these sorts of sophisticated attacks, because it's looking for the known threats out there. We need a tool that's going to look at the behavior of the machine. That Word document that you've opened, why is it all of a sudden started to interact with your machine in such an unusual way? An antivirus isn't going to pick that up. That's why we need more detection and response tools that's going to look at the behavior of the machine.
And we know that that's where Huntress comes in. But it would be good, I think, if we can talk about, we talked about the 24/7 support always being on, and you talked about these bad actors. So we're here in Glasgow, 2:00 in the morning, something bad happens. How does Huntress kick in?
That's a wonderful question. So Huntress, as you know, is 24/7. It's operating every single day, every single minute of the year, no matter if it's Christmas or New Year's, whatever it may be. So as you mentioned, there's a cybersecurity incident at 2:00 in the morning. Maybe there's an identity that has been taken over. Their credentials have been stolen. Huntress are monitoring that sort of activity, if it's on the endpoint or if it's on the identity, for example. And if we see something that is abnormal, suspicious, or straight up malicious, Huntress will not only detect but respond to that as well. So if we saw some sort of malware on the machine, we have the ability to be able to kill that process, delete that file. We can even isolate the machine if we can see that there's a bad actor that's remoting onto that machine as well, that has hands-on keyboard access to that machine. We need to be able to respond, because we're making that sort of decision that if we do leave this longer, it's going to be detrimental to the organization. And that's the benefit, and that's the wonderful aspect of Huntress being that 24/7, no matter what day or time, we're there to be able to protect.
And how quickly does that happen?
So on a mean time, we are 8 minutes, which is incredibly fast when you're talking about real humans behind the SOC, hands on keyboard, bums on seats, that these are people that are analyzing the environment, correlating the data and double checking. It's not just on that endpoint, it's the entire organization. Can we see anything else? For that to be 8 minutes is quite damn impressive, in my opinion.
See, in relation to, obviously, we're talking about the solutions in terms of endpoint detection and identity protection. What we're seeing a lot of is an experience of users and staff. So where do you see security awareness training and ongoing phishing simulation and the importance of the defence layer? Where do you see that sitting as a layer of importance?
Now, that's a wonderful question. That's something that I got asked recently as well. And, and I'll tell you where I got this question. It's somebody that was new into security. He says, you show me Huntress, what should I start off with first? And I said, you know what? If you want an immediate impact to be able to protect your organization, EDR, ITDR, because that's detection and response. That's something you can implement right now and you'll make an impact. But something which is going to be continuous, but is going to bring in a lot of return on investment, is your security awareness training. Not clicking on that link to start off with, not downloading that file that looks suspicious. Because a lot of people receive emails, phishing emails, and they're not looking for the most common things out there. Let's say the sender email, for example, looking at the, let's say, the writing, the urgency, all of these things. So that's where I say security awareness training should be one of the most fundamental things that every organization should introduce, because threats are ever evolving. They will not stop. There are new things that are coming up, and you need a security awareness training platform that's going to keep up with those sorts of threats.
And one of the things I think, certainly I see, is that there's still this separation between security and AI, but where does security awareness training come into it in terms of safe use of AI and even prompting? Can you be exposed from using a prompt?
You can to some extent. Yeah, it also depends as to what you're putting down into the AI. So, Chris, we were talking about this earlier today. About a bad actor, not just a genuine user within an organization may put in something to an AI, but you also have to be careful as to what sort of model you're putting it into. So I'll give you two examples. There's an AI model which is designed to do bad activity. We mentioned it, WormGBT, that's designed to be able to make malware. So the sort of prompt there could be quite dangerous because you may be asking it to design something for you, such as malware. And then there's this genuine model such as ChatGPT. If you're not paying for ChatGPT and other sorts of LLMs, then you are effectively exposing what you're putting there into that model. So one of the examples I put down is if I say enough times, hey, I'm Sasha and I'm 5'9", eventually if you put down, hey, could you tell me everything that you know about me, to ChatGPT, it will list down absolutely everything that it's learned from you. And it's quite concerning knowing that, and that's being exposed to their servers.
So that leads me on to think about many of our customers, and maybe some of the viewers of this podcast will be operating within a Microsoft environment. And where does Huntress fit within the Microsoft environment? How does it keep your Microsoft users safe? And is there anything that would be useful to talk about to make sure we're getting the maximum use from what's already in the box?
Absolutely. I mean, right now, when we talk about Huntress, over 50% of our partners utilize Microsoft. They utilize Microsoft licenses in some capacity, such as yourselves. Okay, so the way that we benefit from Microsoft is if you have an EDR, okay, we can integrate into.
We need to explain what EDR is for the listeners.
Okay, yeah, we could do that. So EDR, just as an acronym, I'm sorry, I do get quite intertwined with it. Acronyms, so many in cybersecurity. EDR stands for Endpoint Detection and Response. That's kind of like your antivirus on steroids. It's looking for that behavior. It's looking for the things that an antivirus just can't be able to pick up, because an antivirus is looking for the known threats. An EDR is looking for the threats that an antivirus can't be able to pick up. So an EDR that's deployed on every machine on a organization, if they're utilizing Microsoft antivirus that's baked into every Microsoft operating system, we can actually pull in the logs. That gives our SOC team, a security operations center, telemetry with what's happening further left than what EDR is picking up by itself. And even better, if you've got Microsoft Business Premium, then you unlock things like Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, their more beefier version of their Defender endpoint security. And we can also be able to pull those logs as well. So what does that actually mean for an organization? Gives our security team better visibility with what's going on your endpoints and lifts off those sort of noise from you as well.
So this week we've launched SilverCyber, which is security operations, a SOC offering. It's multi-layered, and it's got the education that you talked about, and Jack referenced security awareness training, again from Huntress.
Lovely. Yeah.
It comes with backup, identity protection.
Fantastic.
So we've got that comprehensive, evolving tech stack to deliver a greater degree of protection to our customers. But nothing is 100% certain, is it?
No.
So I think it would be great to talk about some of the risks that you're seeing, and maybe the ones that are most common and emerging, and what the mitigation might be.
So you are absolutely right. There is no organization that is completely 100% safe unless you turn absolutely everything off, which obviously then you're not going to be making any money as an organization. But the common thing I'm seeing, phishing. Okay, phishing is by far the most common threat I am seeing out there. That bad actors are making it so much easier to be able to push out phishing emails because of things like AI. All they need to do is put in the prompt, put in the templates, and let it do its work.
So they're not obvious to spot anymore. A couple of years ago, we used to joke about the bad spelling, the incorrect names. They were obvious. They're not obvious anymore.
Even the domains, so obvious those stage. I pulled it up earlier today that I saw a domain that is still out there on the world. No reply at Microsoft.com, but it's not Microsoft. It's lowercase r, lowercase n, Microsoft.com. How is someone going to be able to spot that from a distance? And especially if we use mobile phones for emails, we don't even get to see the sender email by default. We only see the header, Microsoft. And you have the most beautiful template that looks identical to the real thing. Of course, people are going to click on it. And it's funny, if I have 10 PCs and I had 10 mobile users, I would always get more clicks on mobile users because they're in a rush, always. So that is the number one thing I'm seeing out there. Now, there's two different technologies I'm going to mention, or tools I'm going to mention, that can help combat that. Number one is ITDR, so Identity Threat Detection and Response. You need a tool that if there were credentials that were stolen, if a user's logging in from another location, there needs to be some sort of detection and response on that as well. That if a bad actor managed to take over credentials, we can be able to shut down that identity immediately. And our ITDR, we have a response rate of 3, or mean time to respond of 3 minutes, which is incredibly rapid. Alongside that, security awareness training, because there are still some components of those emails, the domain, the urgency, for example, that we can be able to detect before clicking on that link. And even just relevance. Are you expecting an email from this particular vendor, such as DocuSign, when you utilize another vendor? It's simple things like that, which we need to stop rushing, take our time, and maybe ask a question. And those two combined will help combat those sorts of phishing emails that we're seeing out there.
I think it would also be good to elaborate on the intelligence behind the security awareness training platform in terms of user learning if there were to breach or put in credentials, just to get a bit more on that.
Yeah, I think it's great. A lot of people are not aware. Number one is that our Security Operations Center, if they see a dramatic increase of ransomware 1 month, we will update our episodes that are sent out to the learners. So if there's 1 month where we're seeing a dramatic increase of an attack, there'll be training specifically on that attack, just to be able to be a little bit more proactive. The next thing is that if someone does click on a link, we need to educate. We've got a moment, a precious moment that we can be able to educate this particular learner to ensure that this never happens again, okay? Or continuous engagement.
Now, I was that guy, sorry to cut you
No,
off,
no,
because
go on.
3 weeks ago, I was phished. And I tell the story quite deliberately.
By Huntress.
I was phished by Huntress.
Okay.
So we run Huntress internally. We run what we call phishing testing. It was I was a victim of coincidence. I'd been updating a mobile phone bill. 10 minutes later, the same company phished me. I thought, oh no, I'd missed something off. Clicked. You've been phished.
Yeah.
So I was caught.
It's the right time.
And if someone like me who works in the tech sector, no one's infallible.
No.
I might confess now as well.
There we go. I'm going to be next.
last year, at 2.5 years at Huntress last year, I was caught out by our own phishing. It was a DocuSign. I was off work for the week, and I was expecting a DocuSign to come through. I was not in work mode. Had seen this come through, and compromised my own credentials.
But here's a question: when you did get compromised, was there training for you to do?
There was, yes.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about that training.
Straight away, I got enrolled into the phishing defense coaching, and then taken through that, which broke down the reasons psychologically why I'd clicked that link, which I hadn't looked at it properly. I wasn't at work. I wasn't concentrating really on what I was doing, and then it broke down the email as well. So it gave me points on what I should be looking out for and why it wasn't from who it proposed it was from.
Yeah, I think what's great about that and really interesting is when we talk about these kind of high pressure, intense, stressful situations in life. Like for me, I nearly got compromised from a Huntress security awareness training phishing email. I was travelling back from a different country. Our technology and automation director decided to template a nice email of the airline I was travelling with 3 hours before my flight. So I accessed into my email, seen the airline come through in the email, and something made me check it. I don't know if it's because of the sector we work in, and I love what I do. So I I kept reading it over, and understood it was Huntress, and I reported it and got him, and I got a message from Kenny saying well done, and I was like, you need to do
It's
better
the
than that.
mindset. That's what
Yeah.
we're trying to change. And what I love about our security awareness training is that we're not like other vendors that if you do click on something, right, we're going to send you training or give you a splash page, or we're going to send you training at the end of the month or the end of the campaign. That could be 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead. Are you saying that this person that's clicked on that link has to wait 4 weeks to get the necessary training to ensure that doesn't happen again? What happens if they receive a real phishing email within that 4 weeks? So Huntress ensures that as soon as you click on that link, you obviously get told that, hey, this was a phishing email, but we give you the training then and there. 5 minutes, that is all. And there's 2 reasons for that. Number one is that we are closing that gap, that as soon as that somebody does get that click, they get the training. So if they do receive a real phishing email 1 week later, they've been informed as to the things that we need to watch out for. But number 2, you learn and retain information better during a shockable moment. Apparently, all the things which are important go out the window and you focus on that one thing. And that's what I love about our security awareness training there.
Oh, definitely, I agree. And talking about real phishing emails that come through and points of compromise, what is that impact if that real phishing email is filled in? Let's get into the interesting part and the negative part of
That
if
is
a business
interesting.
compromises.
Now, I've seen a lot at my time here at Huntress for nearly 2 years now. Now, I've seen situations where they'll just breach the accounts and maybe just sniff and have a look at some emails. I've seen ones where they've breached the accounts by different ways. And what they've done is sniff through emails, start to look at the most common contacts that they're speaking to, and formulate an email to that person with a PDF file, with something that requires them to click and log into something so they can steal their credentials. This is an opportunity for that bad actor to be able to laterally move to another organization.
So social engineering.
To some capacity, it can be, yes. And, social engineering is kind of convinced them, hey, you should do this or do that in some way. But this is just literally putting something that is malicious into that email and just letting them click onto that. Hey, it's me, Sasha, you know me very well. We've been speaking for the last 2 weeks. Download this new PDF of the invoice that I'm going to reach out to you, and just let somebody click on it. And then it ends up downloading malware. How do we think M&S got breached, this particular? I don't want to explode into those sort of, big situations that happened last year, but this was a learning moment for a lot of organizations. Be careful with emails that come through even supply chains, for example. The bad actor, hacker group, Scattered Spider, tried to go directly to M&S, realized it was too noisy, pulled out, and ended going up for a consultancy firm that works with M&S. And sometimes the company that they breach first isn't actually the final destination.
So you make an interesting point, because we, as I mentioned earlier, we support nearly 800 Scottish-based companies, lots of whom are a lot smaller than M&S and SMEs up to small enterprises. How do they prioritise investment in cybersecurity with all the different competing? Is it going after Cyber Essentials, retaining Cyber Essentials, going to Cyber Essentials Plus? Is it a certain type of technology? We've got some strong views on that, and hence why we've launched SilverCyber. But what are your thoughts on that?
So are we talking specifically for the SME market in this particular case? Yeah. So there's a couple of areas. You've got some organizations which are very cyber aware, and they will start to look into things like, I need to get certified with things like Cyber Essentials. And I recommend that as a definitely every organization. It's not that difficult. There's some particular criteria that you have to meet. Some of them are looking for things like Cyber Essentials. Some of them are saying, right, we just need a 24/7 SOC team and that's it. We don't really need to do
that always on security.
Correct. Yeah. And those organizations which want to go a step further with things like Cyber Essentials Plus, it's all about business risk. Okay. If you do have these certifications, you're already making checks on particular areas within your environment, firewalls, endpoints, identities. You are reducing your risk with that. But there's some organizations that I speak to, and all they have is endpoint protection. And I say, okay, what about your identities? Oh, we're okay. We don't really receive emails. I said, but that's not really the point over here. So I think there's some organizations out there that are completely aware of cybersecurity, which is why they listen to their MSPs when MSPs are reaching out, such as yourselves, saying, look, you need X, we've seen Y, let's have that discussion. And there's some organizations that I just feel like they just need a little bit more cyber education and about the threat landscape, which is why I want to get involved with podcasts like this, so we could be able to listen to this and understand that there's a lot more going on out there. And we shouldn't have tunnel vision with that.
So just so that we cover all the bases, there's a couple of other areas that we are part of our SilverCyber offer, which includes backup.
Lovely.
But also there's another acronym that we haven't talked about, which is SEAM. It'd be great to get you guys to what's that and why is that important and why could that be important for a Scottish business?
I would say as well, just to add to that point, Mark, is what we see across the Scottish market, specifically for SMEs, is SEAM is the least educated product.
Makes
no
sense.
one understands it. No one gets it.
Makes
so
sense.
How do you simplify that to SMEs?
I'll say one sentence and then I'll pass it over to Chris, because Chris is probably the person that speaks the most about SEAM to people that are not familiar with the technology. But SEAM,
Big fan.
yeah, big fan indeed. SEAM is Security, Information and Event Management. It's another SEAM, SEM, however you're from in the world. It's something which only was available for the enterprise organizations, okay, the top 1%. So people have this feeling and mindset that, oh, I'm too small to have SEAM. You know, I shouldn't have SEAM because I'm not an enterprise solution. But Huntress, as they do, is like, hold my beer. We'll make it quite easy to be able to implement it. And we ended up making Huntress SEAM with the focus that this is designed for the SMB market. But Chris, you talk about SEAM all the time to your
I was worried
partners and
you were
customers.
going to take longer than one
No,
sentence.
I'm going to stop there, but I'll let you crack on.
SEAM was a service that was early access 2 years ago and we released it in October 2024. And it was a service we put in place primarily through what we're hearing back from our partners and MSPs, but also from the market as well, because at the time it was only really enterprise customers that could afford a SEAM, both from a financial perspective and also the time it takes to put together a whole team to manage SEAM. And also, this was driven out of the States as well, and I'll go into the reasons why in a little bit of a sec, but cyber insurance was quite big and doing really well over there, and a lot of SMEs in the States were, say, 18 months to 2 years ahead of where we are in EMEA when it comes to cyber insurance. They wanted to be able to retain their logs, be able to present it to cyber insurance companies if they ever got impacted with ransomware, not just to say what had happened, but actually reduce the time it takes to receive a payout as well. And having SEAM in place there helped do that. But the beautiful thing about SEAM is, as I said, released it 18 months ago now, and it's gone from strength to strength, is our SOC are actively involved in monitoring and managing the SEAM side. So that means we can go to, I guess, the preemptive side of things, being proactive when it comes to getting ahead of threats. Because if you have SEAM on firewalls, you can actually detect a threat 18, 24 hours before it's gone further into the network. So before it's hit those vital servers and endpoints.
You're not focusing just on the endpoints and identities, you're focusing on the network, right? So there's this kind of like entire realm that, you know, if you just have EDR, endpoint detection response, or ITDR, identity threat detection response, there's this entire realm that we do not have visibility of. The attack may start from there. Or there's been an incident on the EDR, but we can't tell you where it originated from because we don't have the logs of your firewall or VPN. So having that allows the SOC team to conduct a further, more detailed investigation, because we don't want to be in a situation where we found something, but we don't know how to tell you to make sure it doesn't happen again because we don't have the logs. So that's what the SEAM really does help us with.
So SEAM's, you're ingesting data
Absolutely.
From other systems. So it's giving you a broader radar to be aware for threats.
Everything generates logs. You know, why would we not want to take use of those logs? Why should we just let them bleed out? You know, the SOC team need those logs to be able to figure out exactly what's going on as wide as they can, and the SEAM does unlock that.
I was trying to make it real for if you were a Scottish business and you've got an e-commerce aspect, or you're running your own website, or you're sharing data with a third party. All of those are potential opportunities to monitor those information
Correct.
flows and spot risks and hazards.
Correct, because
Yeah.
a bad actor may not just touch your endpoint;
Yeah.
they may go for your voice service,
Yeah.
for example, which is in the clouds.
Yeah.
But if we have that ingestion within the SIEM, that is one more stream that the Huntress SOC team can be able to monitor and detect if there's any sort of abnormal behaviour with that.
And act faster and be able to remediate.
Is left of boom. You're picking up things further left of boom, which is great. Boom is when the incident occurs, and
Yeah.
right of boom, you have your detection and response tools. But left of boom are things like with the SIEM solution and even configuration management, etc.
Now, what we've been talking about might be argued as the more sophisticated end of cybersecurity. But again,
Yes.
SilverCyber, we're offering that as an out-of-the-box solution.
That's fantastic.
But if we look back to, we very rarely talk to customers who don't have anything. So let's assume you've got multi-factor authentication, you've got some basic, you talked about EDR, antivirus. What are the concerns that you could suggest to someone that's running a business? They might want to reevaluate who they're working with to protect their business. What are some of the warning signs?
For me, I think they need to. I would encourage them to speak outside of their own business and understand the risks of just having that limited technology. No one talks about a breach. No one says they've been impacted.
No.
We see it every day, and so do you guys because of the industry we're in. But I would certainly encourage them to speak to you guys,
100%,
and speak to other people within their industry and understand the impacts of being impacted. Because having an AV just on its own nowadays.
And having cyber insurance isn't the answer either, is it?
No.
No.
There's no point you having cyber insurance if you don't. I don't even think they won't even insure you if you don't have the correct technologies in place anyway. Or they'll just charge you a ridiculous portion. But the sort of thing that I've been saying in 2005 and 2026 is that MFA alone is not enough. You can.
That's multi-factor authentication.
Correct. Yeah, we cannot. That could be your mobile phone giving you a code. That alone is not enough. There are attacks out there which we're seeing make up to around 15% of our ITDR alerts, which are specifically designed to bypass MFA. And unfortunately, we have organizations that come up to us and say, "How was that possible?" Like MFA was bulletproof, yes, maybe 5-6 years ago. So I think it's, again, having those conversations, speak to an MSP like yourselves, for example, because you guys are well equipped. You guys have seen the nasty things that happen out there, to be able to get that education as to, right, this is what you have, this is where you need to be, let's build that journey for you.
And now looking forward, what are we going to see more of? Where is the future of risks and cybersecurity heading?
It's a really good question. One of the things that I think is that we haven't hit the peak of what AI can be able to do yet. It is a climbing journey on a very tall mountain. What we are seeing at Huntress is the same sort of attacks happening in different ways to some extent, and AI is building those new pathways. So what I feel like in the next 12 months is that we're going to see more AI accelerated attacks. We're going to see a lot of identity attacks, more than endpoints, I would say, 100%. So that doesn't mean, I'm just going to protect my identities and not my endpoints. Most of the times, and this is for the listeners, is that they will target your identities first just to end up to your endpoints. That's the thing. So I feel like in the next 12 months, AI is definitely going to be taking and absolutely battering the market from a cybersecurity standpoint, but also cybersecurity needs to adopt AI as well. And I'm glad to say that Huntress is doing that to some capacity to ensure that we can be able to deal with the overloading work. But one thing we will never do is replace our humans.
We view it as the Iron Man approach, don't we?
Correct, not the Terminator. Yeah.
So Terminator is a machine that runs everything. Iron Man is the suit controlled by the human, but it allows the human to make decisions quicker, faster, and more accurately. So we use that Iron
Jarvis,
Man suit to Jarvis.
Yeah, that's it. Rather than Skynet.
So if we may, I wanted to go back to the identity protection as an example. And again, maybe use me as an example. I'm traveling, I'm going on holiday.
Sure.
I travel somewhere that I don't normally go. Last year I went to Morocco. How does Huntress protect me from nasty risks and those bad actors that you talked about earlier when I hit another country, I maybe go to join a unsafe hotel network, I'm not running a VPN. what are the risks that I could be exposed to, and how does Huntress help me not get caught?
So Huntress is monitoring you anywhere and everywhere. And, some examples I have as well is that they go into a hotel, public Wi-Fi, for example, they end up logging into something that looks like the real Wi-Fi, but it's not. So they are, I'll say, there are common attackers out there that will utilize something called an evil twin. Now, an evil twin is just copying the Wi-Fi name and putting in their own website that looks identical to the real one. That is very common in public Wi-Fis, for example, cafes, etc. Now, I've had that happen to a friend of mine who is a customer of Huntress now. And he went to a airport and logged into a Wi-Fi that he thought was the airport. Now, that particular page was capturing all the information, username and password and things like MFA. And what he did was now find out what username that person has, what the email is, what their password is, captured that information and ended up sending out an email to that person saying that, hey, you've logged into an unusual location. Could you please authenticate? Here's the link, directing them to a fake Microsoft site so they could try to bypass their MFA. Huntress saw that as soon as they logged in. So we saw that this person usually logs in from this country, and now they're logging in from.
And Huntress can stop that dead
immediately. As soon as that login happens,
in seconds.
Mean time to respond 3 minutes. We see that, we investigate, we see that this person is now utilizing a VPN. They normally don't utilize a VPN. They should be logging in from the United Kingdom. They're now logging into the Philippines, just as an example. Or even if their browser changes, if their operating system changes, any of those sorts of parameters that change, Huntress get to see. And we will make the decision to say that is a credential theft or token theft, and we would then isolate that and respond to that.
And if I'm that guy, but I'm looked after by SilverCyber from SilverCloud, your Huntress will kick in immediately, any time of day or night.
Correct.
And then we'll be speaking to the team here in Glasgow.
Immediately, yeah. Immediately. There'll be a report letting you know exactly what has happened. We would have blocked that connection. We could have even isolated the identity so they can't log into Microsoft until we are satisfied that credentials have been rotated. And this is why we need to be able to reach out to SilverCloud and SilverCyber, let them know what we found. SilverCloud, SilverCyber will make that decision now.
That's on any device?
Correct, yeah, any device. It does not matter because it's all related to that same 365 identity. So it could be your mobile, could be your PC, could be your macOS, whatever it is, yeah. So all the same identity.
I think one of the things we continue to hear lately is, obviously we spoke briefly on all these big attacks like M&S and so on. So all the Scottish SMEs under kind of 250 employees, you don't hear much about them in the news.
No,
so
of course
the
not.
question that we hear is, why me? Why would they go for me? What is your response to that?
Such a good question. So the things that, for the listeners, the things that you're seeing out there on the news makes up to 0.01% of threats. Okay, you can literally go to ransomware.live and you will see all the successful breaches that have happened. Now, for the organizations, the small to medium-sized orgs that are saying, why me? Why would they look at a little accountancy firm like myself in Scotland? Just as an example, you are easier to breach. Full stop. Okay. M&S, although they did get breached, it took time. It took a lot of resources. Okay. It took an entire group of hackers effectively. Whereas that one hacker that could be able to say, right, I'm just going to be able to get access to one identity within that accountancy firm, just as an example, and I've got access to the entire organization. A lot of organizations simply are not believing they need cybersecurity because of two reasons. Number one, they haven't been breached and they don't know the implications that can happen. And unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of reactive rather than proactive organizations. But number two is that they feel like cybersecurity is too expensive. It's not. Huntress is designed to be able to provide organizations through obviously SilverCloud and SilverCyber to be able to have affordable cybersecurity that will be able to protect the same way that an enterprise security
So I was just thinking,
provides.
Jack, so one of the questions we're often asked is, if you come in and we often do security audits, and it's
Great.
a key part of, it's just much more than a traditional IT service. So we would audit, and quite often we're asked, well, what if they're already in? What if we find that? How do I know that I've already got a point of compromise? I'll say, well, you should not be afraid to shine a light into a dark room.
Yep.
There's an onus of responsibility to understand if you have been compromised. Where does Huntress fit in that? If Huntress becomes part of the solution through SilverCyber?
So number one is, as part of that audit, when you deploy the ITDR, the Identity Threat Detection and Response, we actually do an audit of your 365 environment. We look for any sort of suspicious inbox rules that have been created. And one of the successful stories I have is an application that was downloaded, and this was at least 4 months ago now, downloaded all the way back in 2019. Now, this application was designed to be able to harvest emails that are commonly used by that individual. So this is called a rogue application. Okay, these applications are legitimate applications that can be downloaded within Microsoft, but are commonly used by bad actors because of the very advanced permissions that they have. Now, it was a bit of an interesting conversation because this person was the CEO. His job is not security, but he's quite a small organization. He said, Sasha, I don't even know how to download these sorts of applications. Are you telling me a bad actor has access to my environment right now? It's so hard to be able to answer that when something was downloaded all the way back in 2019 and you're just deploying the technology now. However, we have identified that there was a rogue application within that environment. That is enough to say that needs to go right now if you're not using it. Okay. This person put his hands up and said, Sasha, I don't utilize those applications. I don't even know how to do it. So that needs to go. We need to get the ITDR in place right now to see if there's any residue. And one of the residues was that rogue app. So that is why we need to get those protections right now. And you're absolutely right. Shine a light. Don't be shy. Because you'd rather be safer than sorry. Okay. I would rather have that awkward conversation about something has happened because maybe I was a little bit more relaxed, for example, than a complete breach that has taken your organization down and you're suffering with reputational damage, which unfortunately is the largest cost with most organizations, reputational damage, where people don't want to be able to work with you or they don't feel safe dealing with you as an organization because you've been breached previously. We want to be able to protect those sort of things from happening.
And I know to some degree that there's no such thing as a typical breach, or every breach could be different. But how long and painful, from your experience, is it to recover from different types of breaches?
Average.
What could the future look like if you don't do these types of things?
I'll give you some statistics. So out there, last year, 2025, 43% of organizations suffered some form of a cyber breach. Out of that 43%, 70% of them were SMBs. No surprise.
Small and medium-sized businesses.
Correct. Yeah, no surprise there. The average threat dwell time, as in a hacker staying within your environment in 2026 is 10 to 12 days. When I started cybersecurity, my little self, 10 years ago, that was nearly 200 days. So are we saying hackers are, or should we say cybersecurity is getting better, that we're detecting things faster? Yes, to some degree. Are we saying hackers are getting faster to get to that pot of gold? Absolutely. They don't need to stay as long within that environment to be able to find what they need. And to answer your question regarding the recovery, on average, it takes 30 days or 29 days to be specific for an organization to be operationally back up and running 100%. But here's the thing. A lot of people don't know that you can't just flick the switch and everything comes back on. You need to be able to get your most critical assets up and running first, and then you trickle down to the most, lesser priorities out there. So it will have a long-term effect.
Well, many companies I know say, we're fine, we've got backups. But could backups themselves be compromised?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If the hackers specifically will look for backups. So if you've got backups locally on your endpoints, those are still risk. Those are still a risk. Bad actors are sophisticated enough to be able to know if you've got copies on your machines, and they will encrypt those as well, which is why you need offline copies, not in the same location. So we say like a 3-2-1 rule. You have 3 copies in 2 different locations, one of them offline. And that's the way that we should encourage every organization, because again, that dramatically reduces that risk. But please, please, please do not think that if you've got a copy of your endpoints locally on the machine, it's safe. Absolutely not. Hackers are almost expecting that you have that now, and they will encrypt those as well.
Here's another one then.
Yeah.
So I'm keen to understand, Huntress, you're a really fast-growing organisation. I think we talked earlier, your next big milestone will be 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
We've recently launched SilverCyber, Silver Cloud. We are onboarding new skills and staff, and particularly focusing on cyber skills. What do you look for when you're recruiting people to within Huntress?
I can give you mine.
Is it geeks?
So the founders, bless them, I really adore and love them. 3 guys used to work for the NSA. Okay, which
not everyone's going to be familiar with those over here in Scotland.
No, it's kind of like I don't even know the Chris. You know
GCHQ possibly.
So the NSA is like the National Security Agency. Yeah. So kind of like the cyber police for
spies and spooks in America.
And they were all kind of hackers there, and trying to defend nation state attacks. Okay, now they left the government agency and realized that there's a massive gap within the market, that small to medium sized organizations cannot afford good cybersecurity. So that's where Huntress was developed from there. And since then, back in 2015 to now 2026, we've grown from a 3-man company technically to now an 800 plus team company, which is phenomenal. And my interview was 6 stages. We hire very well because we definitely have a hard interview process. And one of the common things that they look for is not only you have to be technically capable, you have to be passionate with what you do. If there is no passion, you're not going to love what you're doing. And, back then I already had my YouTube and my LinkedIn and my Spotify there. So I was able to kind of show that off and show them, hey, I love what I'm doing.
We should put a link on our podcast and drive some traffic.
Good plug.
So I'd definitely love to have that on there as well. And I definitely had the passion, and I think that definitely helped me with that. And I really valued the mission of Huntress. I really valued that. And I love the fact that we're looking after those smaller organizations and wanting to give them the love, the same as what an enterprise organization would have as well.
They're giving that, they're getting access to sort of military grade
Pretty much,
capability.
yeah. That's it.
Well,
What about you, Chris?
Well, at the time in 2015, they did spot that gap, but the 3 founders, it was enterprise technology was available to large enterprises only. They knew it could be made accessible to those small and medium-sized enterprises.
Yeah.
And going back to your question, Mark, of what does Huntress look for employees? We're a fully remote organisation, which isn't too much of an issue. Well, it's a great thing for us to have, particularly in the States, because you can build good technology, but it's very difficult to find good people, particularly in the technology sector. Now, in the States, obviously a much bigger country than the United Kingdom, they can hire people in the mountains, by the coast, west coast. It doesn't matter. They haven't got to be within 50 miles of an office or anything like that. And that means we've got great people across North America in our SOC, great people in EMEA, great people in APAC as well. And that's really, I guess, what
really
we look
drives,
for. It doesn't restrict us in terms of who we can hire.
And they love especially like the SOC team, they love what they're doing. They absolutely adore and love it. And I don't think I've met a SOC analyst that is not just absolutely obsessed with knowing about security threats and doing something out there. And some of them have written books. We've got one of our guys, the principal threat researcher in the US, John Hammond. He's got 2.5 million followers on YouTube. His whole job is to kind of find threats out there in the community and out there in the wild. And what he does, and I spoke to him, I was like, I don't know how you manage it. He said, Sasha, Huntress fuels me. He's like, it gives me the knowledge to be able to then make those YouTube videos because I'm learning so much at Huntress and I want to educate people. That's the sort of passion that we have here at Huntress, from the sales engineers to the sellers, all the way down to the actual SOC analysts themselves.
So we're equally passionate about our business, SilverCyber. And if I come straight back to Glasgow, and it's not got any cooler, it's just getting warmer. I often wonder, in Scotland or in the UK, are we more receptive to some cyber risks than others? Are we being targeted? Is it the same risks everywhere globally? Or is phishing as rife in other countries? Or are there things that we should expect to see that are coming over from America?
That's a really good question. Now, I think phishing happens anywhere and everywhere. To be honest, I wouldn't say Scotland specifically is getting, as far as I know, is getting targeted more than, let's just say, England or maybe Spain, for example. Now, here's the thing. The United Kingdom, and a lot of people may disagree, is actually quite a very rich country. Okay, as including Scotland, Wales, and England, that you have access to a lot of resources. So there may be scammers which are coming from other poorer countries, should we say, and they would target people within Scotland, within England, etc., because they have access to more resources, etc., that what the government provides. So I'd say out of all the countries out there, Scotland is still one of the top ones out there to be breached. But there are countries that I'm seeing, such as China, America, and even Iran as well, are getting absolutely bombarded. But that is a mixture of nation states as well as just genuine attackers. But these smaller sorts of attackers are still targeting people within the United Kingdom quite often. But look, I wouldn't say that right now politically anything's happening in Scotland that they need to be more cautious, but that shouldn't drop your card at all.
I would add to that as well. The threat actors, they know the big boys. They make the headlines, but they also know they've got a strong set of security tools around them, which is why they often view SMBs as the low-hanging fruit, as it were, as the easy picking. Yeah. So you may not see them in the news, but these threat actors tend to go after SMBs far more than they do the larger enterprises.
And we would never know about it unless we actually dig in deeper.
So going back to almost, I would turn to the question I asked at the beginning of this podcast. If I'm running a Scottish business, and I've been listening on in here, and we've covered education, we've covered some technology, working with partners like SilverCloud, and we've just launched SilverCyber. That question again, what's the key piece of advice? The one thing that someone running a Scottish business should ensure that they ask their team tomorrow?
Love that. So look, to be honest, then, education is still there, because that is still things like security awareness training, but it's also your people. Okay, your people are your most important assets. So it's about giving that sort of education to them, but also look at the most sort of, I guess, single point of failures. MFA, do you just have MFA? Because in my opinion, that's a single point of failure, because if they get past that is it. They got access to your environment. There's no sort of detection or response tools. So what I would recommend now is to be able to identify your most important assets. People are one of them, your identities, things like your servers, critical infrastructure, etc. And just think to yourself, what sort of security protections do I have? A lot of people say, we just have X. Then that's the time where you should be thinking to yourself, I need to be able to speak to someone like SilverCloud to be able to determine, is there anything else that I could be able to do to strengthen my cybersecurity? So it's about going out and asking those questions, okay? But it's not just going out and asking those questions on Reddit. Go out and ask questions to people that are actually dealing with this every single day.
Right, so it's a multi-layered approach.
Absolutely, because one layer alone is not enough. It's like a castle. You need your gates, you need high walls, you need your arches, for example. You need to be able to have arches that are facing inside the castle and outside of the castle as well. So all of those things are just other layers that could be able to detect threats. If one fails, you've got another layer of defense.
I would also say don't be afraid to ask and reach out for advice. Jack, you mentioned at the start of the session where SilverCloud have recognised that cybersecurity is very complex for a lot of organisations, and you guys have taken time to build a solution and package it that makes it simpler for those organisations. Reach out to SilverCloud and ask for advice.
Cybersecurity is not going to stop. It is just going to get harder and harder and harder. When I say harder, as in more attacks are going to occur. They're going to increase year on year rapidly. Again, a manful of statistics. An RMM, remote monitoring and management tool. That's just basically a tool that you can remote into another machine. Most organizations which have large amounts of staff have something like that. Attackers are abusing those sorts of tools, and that's gone up by 277% year on year. Phishing or credential theft has gone up by around 80%. Ransomware, 88%. All of these are not going to slow down. AI is making it so much easier to be able to attack. And unfortunately, these numbers, again, for us, it makes our lives interesting because there's a lot going on. But for organisations, they are suffering. So, again, do you want to be one of those organisations that are reactive and potentially could have some downtime, reputational costs, fines, etc., or do you want to be proactive and just have a conversation to see what is missing to be able to identify what the next steps are with your security journey?
Great. Yeah. Now, we're coming towards the end of our time slot, I think, but what I noted down in thinking about today's chat is I thought we'd have a bit of a quick fire round, and I've got some, and I was going to start with the biggest cyber myth So, Sasha, biggest cyber myth.
I think I've already mentioned it. I'm too small to be attacked.
Okay, great. Jack, password managers, yes or no?
100% yes.
Okay, again, a key component of SilverCyber.
A key component. Don't
Yeah,
be.
we will not want to bring on board a new customer without password management.
No, if you're writing passwords down on paper, or you're storing them in a notepad or a Word doc on your laptop, that's a no go. Or using web browsers as well. Like, please don't.
Now, here's one which I'm not sure if I know the right answer to, but it's a good one for Chris. Ransoms. Do people pay ransoms?
No. Once you pay that ransom, it leaves the door open for them to come back. These aren't sort of reputable businesses. They are businesses, but they're not reputable. So if you pay that ransom, there's nothing to say that they won't come back and demand more.
Do you want to give you something that I was actually having this conversation not too long ago? I actually completely agree. Of course, I completely agree with what Chris has just mentioned. Why should you encourage it? Because if you do it for one, they're going to end up doing it for somebody else. But I also had a conversation or question saying that, Sasha, what happens if the ransom is just peanuts and the value of the asset is far more significant than the value of what the ransomware is? Again, that conversation starts getting a little bit more political, should we say? Because again, you have a chance that you can be able to get your data available, but there's nothing stopping them. You do pay them, and then they end up saying, oh no, it's gone up, you have to pay me again. Sure. Or they give you the information, and then the next day you see on the dark web. So it's also that risk as well.
We've heard stories, people, and that's the right argument to put forward. We've heard people have paid ransom and only received a fraction of their data back.
Double extortion.
Right, next one. I said it would be quick. Jack, biggest mistakes that an SME might make?
Not having a written incident response plan if they were to be breached. What happens that next day? What happens when you get breached? If you don't have that action, that first action you're taking, then that's a major mistake.
And something that we cobble as children, we take our own medicine.
Yes. Then
practicing the response, which we do quarterly, and you challenge yourself on that one.
Definitely.
I've got a couple more. AI, helping defenders or attackers most?
Oh, good question. Both. So defenders are utilizing AI. A lot of the defenders I know are utilizing AI. Attackers are also utilizing AI as well. And at the moment, we have AI that's fighting AI pretty much. But the scary thing is that if it's half and half, that is still too much for attackers. They've got half the resources. Yeah. So should I say that are defenders or attackers utilizing AI? They're both utilizing AI right now.
Mm-hmm. So the answer must be use some great technology and work with a great partner.
Correct. Like I say, what Chris said, for example, it's not hard to find good technologies. It's hard to find good people behind the technology.
Okay. Now, final one. One prediction for cybersecurity in 2027. So looking into next year, which still seems a long way away. But, what might we expect?
I'm probably going to say more sophisticated attacks than ever that we've never seen before. That even current tools, for example, will start to be able to struggle. So it's important that the defenders out there, so Huntress are making internal plans on that they keep up with the trends.
And that's what's called zero-day attacks.
Correct. You know, there's zero fix.
It's quite often these phrases are thrown around, and people don't understand why is that important.
So from a zero-day attack perspective, or just these sort of common things that we're seeing out there, is that, you know, when I'm doing my threat research, I can be able to build an AI model, and I can be able to generate code that's never been seen before. So if I be able to generate malware that's never been seen before by an antivirus, or no vendor has seen before, that's effectively a 0 day, because there's a zero patch for it. There's no sort of fix for that. So what would happen is that will be pushed out to the world, and an antivirus would just struggle to be able to detect it. An EDR could detect it, and this is what I love about the endpoint detection and response, is because it's looking at the behavior. Oh, that Word document, that spreadsheet is starting to interact in this way. That's very different. That's why it's important to be able to, especially now in 2026 going on to 2027 with AI, we need to be able to be prepared for things like zero-day attacks, because they are increasing year on year.
Fantastic. So Jack, we've just been talking about SilverCyber. What's in the box, and why does it differ from a traditional IT managed service offering?
Yeah, so as we mentioned at the start, SilverCyber is going to be a specialist division that has a sole focus on really underpinning Scottish SME security posture. So if you're in a place right now as a business owner or business leader that you don't quite understand what you've got from a security perspective and how you're covered in all the areas that are covered, let us come in and see you. We'll work with our pre-sales and technical security pre-sales to work with you to the complete security audit of all your systems, your business systems, your identities, and bring you back a report on where the gaps are. So if you're in that place where you are unsure and you don't have that peace of mind, just get in touch with us and we'd be more than happy to.
And that can be done pretty quickly.
Yeah, very quick. So just over maybe an hour or two, spending in your office, or can I come to you and asking some questions and plugging into systems and networks.
The outputs from that would be?
Yeah, the outputs from that would be a kind of tailored kind of deck in terms of a security audit. And giving you complete findings and gaps that exist within your environment and recommendations of fixes and what solutions plug in to fill those gaps. So that's something we spend quite a lot of time developing over the past, I'd probably say, 7 months. So yeah, it's really in depth and it works. We're already using it and seeing success.
So I like what he said, that you're identifying gaps that a lot of people simply are not aware of. And the concern that I have with small to medium-sized organizations and even enterprise organizations, that they're not aware that something is there until it's audited or found out, for example, that they didn't know that there was this vulnerability, they didn't know that there was this gap with cybersecurity. And unless you have those audits, in my opinion, quite frequently, then that, unfortunately, is just leaving yourself exposed. And when you figured yourself, how did they get in? You didn't do
audits. To education again, isn't it? And just making people understand what those gaps are and what the risks are and what these technologies are there to help.
I agree.
If you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, I agree massively. Yeah.
Wow, so we've covered a lot of ground very quickly on a very warm day. I've learned some new things. It's also made me think about how we can, as a managed service provider, now we've launched SilverCyber, how we can better position some of the opportunities to take advantage of some of the tech that you talked about. We've used a lot of acronyms, but it's been brilliant. Thank you for coming up to Scotland.
Yes, and thank you for having us.
We'll see you again on another podcast, or perhaps we'll make sure that we promote your channel, Sasha.
One thing just to add as well before we kind of finish up, Mark, if we all keep our kind of eyes peeled on kind of social media and LinkedIn on the SilverCyber and SilverCloud pages, we're going to be doing an in-person event coming up kind of into the end of Q3, Q4. Which is going to be great. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that, and I'm sure Huntress will be there and present as well.
Yeah,
brilliant. Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.